Hi guys, in this tutorial we're gonna make this gumball machine from start to finish, and we're gonna use rigid body simulations as part of the animation. We're gonna start the model with Shift A, cube, 1 for front view. We're gonna do SZ 1.3, then GZ 1.3. On edit mode and on edge mode, clicking here or pressing 2. We're gonna give it 5 subdivisions right here, so it's Control R, 5, and then click, right click. Same thing to the side, Control R, 5, click, right click. And on the front face, it's going to be 6, Control R, 6, click, right click. Now if we just give it Control 3, we're applying a subdivision modifier with 3 levels. That's what we want for this model. Then right click, shade smooth. On front view, we're gonna enter again edit mode. We're gonna select these front faces right here. Then we're going to inset them a bit with I. Let's scale that on X with X, S and X, just to try and get these with the same thickness. Then we can hit E to extrude that inwards. Let's just click this button right here so we can see better what's going on. On side view, pressing 3 and then Z wireframe, we can hit G and Y to position this properly. Something like this will work. Back to solid view, I want to select these 4 faces here and E to extrude them out a bit. We're gonna do one more tiny extrusion here, just so we can get this sharp edge. Then we're going to insert another edge loop with Control R and just bring it right there. All right. We're gonna need another one here, so Control R, click, and with the loops still selected, S, Z, and 0 to flatten it. Now let's just GG to slide this towards the edge. And it's looking good. Now we need another edge loop right at the back, something like this. Okay, another one here. Great. And we'll probably have to inset that, so let's just select those faces, I inset, so it's sharper there. All right. We're gonna need to insert another edge loop right here. And now on wireframe and on side view, we're just gonna slide it to the back. Something like, I think something like here should do it. Back to solid view. Let's select those faces. Make sure to select all these faces. On side view, wireframe, again, we're gonna hit E to extrude this. So this is the path that the folding ball will go through. We're gonna need another edge loop right here. So Control R, click and slide, and another one, Control R, click and slide. Great. Now select these front faces here. Extrude it a bit. Then once again, just a tiny extrusion. All right, another loop right here to make it sharper, and it's done. Now we're gonna make that front piece with another cube. This will be really simple, just gonna bring it a bit forward. On front view, I'm gonna scale that down a bit, enter edit mode. Control R2, right click, SX, just like that. Then we're gonna select these 4 edges here, right? And SZ, just like that. On object mode, S and Y. We can hit now Control 2 to add a subdivision surface. Then on edit mode, Control R to click, right click, SZ to make that edge sharper. And same thing on the side, Control R to click, S and Y, just like that. Right click, shade smooth. Great. If we want this to be sharper, we can add another edge loop right here and one right here. I think it looks good. We can probably slide this in with GG. Something like this. Same thing with this loop right there. And now I just want to position it right here. Scale that on front view. Make sure it's working on side view too. Okay, I think I want to bring these closer a bit. Yeah, I think it looks nice. I'm not going to bother making a connection here because it's going to be so close we're not going to be able to see it. And that's it for this part of the modeling. Now for the glass part, we're going to go Shift A, cylinder. Let's just move this up a bit and maybe scale that like SZ 1.2, something like this. On edit mode, we're going to delete these faces, top and bottom. All right. Now, here's a cool trick. We're going to create a UV sphere with Shift A, UV sphere. Let's bring this up here. On edit mode and vertex selection, wireframe, select half of the sphere, X faces. Now on object mode again, SZ, we're gonna squash it, just like that. Then Shift D to duplicate that, Z, and we're gonna bring it down here. We're gonna invert this now, so SZ -1, good. Now let's position this like this. This should do it. We're gonna select these three pieces here and Control J to join them in one mesh. Tab to enter edit mode. We're gonna select this loop and this loop. Control E, bridge edge loops. Same thing here. Select this loop and this one. Control E, bridge edge loops. Now we can hit Control 2, right click, shade smooth. You can see we have this weird thing going on here. And this is because the normals are flipped. So again, enter edit mode, select all the faces, Shift N. That will recalculate all the normals outside. So now those artifacts are gone. Now I want to change the viewport display for this. So let's go on this tab right here, on the object tab, viewport display, and change this to wire. Okay, now let's add a solidify modifier and let's give it a 0.03 thickness. All right, GZ, let's place it somewhere like here. Let's just click this F2 and let's just rename this glass. All right. Now let's model the gumballs. Shift A, UV sphere. This will be our emitter. We can also click F2 and just rename it emitter. Let's position it inside the glass, something like this. All right, now Shift A, mesh, UV sphere. Let's just bring it there, right click, shade smooth. Now this will be our gumball. So let's just rename this to gumball. We're gonna click the emitter. If the glass is just getting in the way, we can always just click this button right here. I like to have these 4 enabled. So let's just uncheck this one. And now it's not clickable anymore. So we can easily select the emitter. with the emitter selected, we're going to the Particles tab, create a new particle system. On number, let's give it something like 500. Lifetime 250. On velocity, we're going to give it 0. On source, let's change jitter to grid. It's personal preference. It's just easier to see what's going on. You will see in a minute. Now on field weights, we're going to put gravity on 0. And if we just hit play, you can see the particles are forming in a grid pattern and they're not falling. That's what we want. There's one more setting to go. So on the render tab, we're going to change halo to object. And on object, we're going to select our gumball. So now the particles are actually this gumball right here. Okay, so this should be enough. Now we have to resize this because they're following this scale. So let's just get to something like this. I think this should be enough. Okay. Now let's select the emitter. Let's go to the modifiers tab and we're going to click convert. That will generate meshes for all the gumballs that were created by the particle system. Now, with them still selected, hit M, new collection, and hit OK. This will really help select all the meshes when we need to. So for now, we can hide the emitter and also this gumball right here. All right, now let's do the rigid body simulation to fill this glass container. Let's select one of the gumballs, this one, that's easier to select. Let's go to the physics tab, rigid body. It's gonna be active, and we're gonna change convex hull to sphere. On sensitivity, just enable collision margin, and we have to give it a really low value, something like 0.001. All right. Now let's right-click the collection, select objects, object, rigid body, copy from active. It's going to take a few seconds. And now what it's done is it has copied all the properties we did here for the rigid tab, for the rigid body, to the other gumballs. Now we have to click the glass, give it also a rigid body, but this one is going to be a passive one. Also, let's enable collision margin, and let's give it 0.0012. All right. For this to work properly, we have to apply all the modifiers. Otherwise, the simulation won't recognize the thickness of the glass. If we hit space right now, everything will explode. And that is because the rigid body is counting the glass right here as a solid object. So we have to change the convex hull to mesh. So now it will calculate the empty space inside. So shift left arrow to go back to frame 1. And if we hit space, now they're all caught up inside there. It's okay, some of them will break and fall, and that's because we have too many gumballs for that particular space. So what we'll do is select again all these gumballs with right click and select objects, object, rigid body, apply transformations. So now if we go back to frame 1, you'll see that they stayed here because this is their default position right now. So now we can delete all these extra balls that are breaking the geometry. We can go to the glass and just change the view again back to solid, just so it's easier for us to see what's going on here. Right now, it looks that all the particles are too big for that container. So we can, let's just put this back to wire. We can right click the collection, select objects, and we can scale them down a bit. If we just hit spacebar again, the simulation will go again, but now it seems that it's more appropriate. I think I want to scale that down even more. Let's just position it up again. And all right, let's give it some time for the simulation to sit. Good. With them selected, object, rigid body, apply transformation. Let's just run the simulation once more so the simulation can sit. And that's awesome. With them selected, object, rigid body, apply transformation. Good. That's looking good. Now let's duplicate with Shift D one of the balls. There we go. And I'm gonna hit M and move it to the scene collection. This one I'm gonna call Gumball Fall, because that's the gumball that's gonna fall through here. All right. Now let's also select another one like there in the middle, something like this. M, scene collection. And we can keep it there, but we're gonna rename this to Gumball Move, because that's the one we're gonna animate to create some movement inside here. All right, let's hide this one for now. And let's start the animation. We're gonna select this front piece right here. Click I, rotation. Then let's jump a few frames forward, like 24 frames, something like this. R, and let's rotate to something like here. I, rotation. So now if we play it, it's rotating properly. With both keyframes selected, T and linear. Good. Let's hold this position before it keeps turning. Let's just select this keyframe, Shift D, and maybe something like, something like this. A few frames forward, we're gonna just hit R and keep moving it. Then I, rotation. Okay. So again, a few frames later, we can just copy this keyframe here with Shift D, bring it there. So now it just clicks and goes back to this position. So this is how it's looking so far. All right. And then of course, we want this to go back to the very first position. So let's Shift D, that first keyframe, and bring it here. Let's see how it's doing. All right. I think maybe we could just bring these keyframes a bit forward. So this motion is faster. Okay. Great. Well, that's it for this part of the animation. Now let's animate the gumball falling. Let's bring it back here. If it's not there, just hit Shift left arrow to bring the cursor back to the first frame and it will appear right there. On side view and wireframe, let's position it inside the base. Something like this. Okay. On front view, G and X. All right. Let's go object, rigid body, apply transformation. So now this is its default position. If we hit play, it's falling through the base. So let's select the base. Let's go to the physics tab, rigid body, passive, convex hull to mesh and the margin to something like 0.001. Now if we hit play, there it is. All right, the thing is, we don't want that ball to fall just in the beginning of the animation. We want that to fall when this piece here does the click, which is on frames 34 to 35. Yeah, 34 is the last point of the rotation. So here's the trick we're gonna use. We're gonna actually animate on this tab right here, on the scene tab, we're gonna animate the rigid body world. That's a bit of cheating, but that's how we're gonna do it. So we're gonna set the speed to 0. So there's nothing really happening if we hit play. We're going to frame 34, which is the end of the rotation animation for this piece. We're gonna set a keyframe right there with I. And then on frame 35, we're gonna change this to 1 and keyframe 2 with I. So what we're doing here is we're saying that there is just no rigid body simulation until frame 34, and then it starts on frame 35. So if we hit play now, on 35, the rigid body simulation starts working again. And that's what we want. Okay, now we also want to animate that one gumball right there, because that will move the other gumballs to help tell the story that something happened here when we click this. So to do that, we're gonna select that gumball on frame 34. Let's go to the physics tab again. We have to click animated. That's the only way the keyframes will work with the rigid body. So on frame 34, we're just gonna hit I and location. And then on frame 35, G, Z, just a bit, I, location. So now it's making all these other balls move. It's a subtle move, but that's just enough for our animation. Let's see how it's working from here. All right. Now we can edit a bit this modeling here. To make the ball slide forward, we have to select these faces right here. Then on side view and wireframe, we can move them up, rotate them, scale them a bit, something like this. Looks like these need some flattening, so S, Y, and 0. Let's bring these something like this, and let's see if this works with our animation. And that's it. Perfect. So now to the shading. The shading will be pretty straightforward. We don't want to make it realistic. We just want to make it, good looking. So let's get the shader editor right here. On world, we're going to load in HDRI. By the way, I always get this set up as default, but you can do Shift A, texture, and environment texture to get this one. And then with that selected, Control T, we can get these other ones because we have the Node Wrangler enabled. It should be enabled by default, but if not, just type in Node Wrangler on the add-ons and enable it. So we're going to connect this right here. And I'm going to use an HDRI from HDRI Haven. I'm going to put the link to it on the description. I want to rotate that on Z -90 because I think that angle will give us the best lighting. So I'm using this one because it's nighttime and because we have some really nice bright spots here that will give us cool reflections. And I kind of wanted to make it feel like it's on some kind of theme park or some carnival thing, something like this. So let's go to the World tab, Ray Visibility, and disable camera. Okay. Now let's go to Object, select the base. We're going to click it. Just choose the color you want. I'm going to go for something like this, red. Then we're going to create a Shift A, texture, noise texture. With that clicked, Control T. Make sure it's ungenerated. So now let's create a converter color ramp. Let's plug in the factor and plug that on the roughness. I want to change the scale 10. Okay. And I want to bring this black value to something like this. And this one, let's make it some tone of gray. Something like this. Yeah, something like this. And let's just bring it down. Okay, we can see some variation here. Yeah, that's okay for now. So that's it for the red part. Now let's create a basic chrome material. So let's go to the Material tab here. Let's call this, I don't know, red or something like glossy red. Let's create another one. And this one is going to be our chrome material. Let's make this fully white. Shift A, texture, noise texture. Same thing, Control T, Shift A, converter, color ramp, factor. Factor goes right here. This goes into the roughness. Now let's assign this chrome material to some of the geometry. So I want to select that top loop right there. Let's just hide the glass and the gumballs for now. I want to select those faces, Control plus a few times. Let's click Assign with the chrome selected. Also here, Control plus a few times. So back to render view. Let's tweak the material. So the chrome is 100% metallic. Let's change the scale to 20. And on the color ramp here, let's change this value to something like this dark gray. And this other value here. Yeah, that will do for now. Enter edit mode again. Select these faces, Control plus a few times. Let's assign that chrome material to. All right. Let's give this one also the chrome material. So I don't like this curve right here. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go to solid. Let's create another edge loop right here. All right, now let's select this loop right there and just assign the glossy red. All right, that fixes it. We're gonna do the same thing right here. So just another edge loop right there. Select this one here and assign the glossy red material. Okay, that's it. Now let's bring back the gumballs and the gloss. Now let's create the gloss shader. New material. We're gonna bring transmission all the way up and roughness to something like 0.05. Now here what's going on, at least in my case. If it's your case too, here's how to solve it. We can see the gumballs right there. So the way to fix it is by coming to the Render tab, Light Paths, and we have to enable refractive caustics. I usually have them turned off by default because sometimes they're really expensive on the rendering and they don't really add too much to the scenes. So since I don't usually have a lot of caustics in my scenes, I have them turned off. So anyway, just make sure they are turned on. Well, that's basically it for the glass. Of course, let's add some chrome to them too. For now, I just want to hide this. It will make it easier for us. Let's go to the glass. On the viewport display, let's bring it back to solid, just so it's easier to see. Let's select the glass here. Let's select this, Control plus a few times until we get to the edge. And I think it's gonna be okay. So on the Materials tab, create another one. Let's get that same chrome and hit Assign. Okay, we're gonna do the same thing on the top. Hit Assign. We can do a few more extrusions here to get some detail. So let's just hit E and Z. Then we can select a few more of these, something like this, and G and Z again. Yeah, that works. Let's go to the render view. Let's see what's going on. That works really well. Now the last thing is to shade all the gumballs. So let's select one of them. Let's create a new material. Let's call this Gumball. And what we want to do is Shift A, create a color ramp that we're going to plug in right into the base color this time. Shift A, input, object info, and let's connect the random to the factor. Now, here's the deal. We can change this linear to constant, and we're going to create a few more steps on this color ramp. So this first one can be a red color. This second one can be something like a blue. Third one can be a yellow. And this one can be something like a green. Feel free to experiment with the colors you like the most. Now let's just bring the roughness way down. And if you want them to be extra shiny, you can just add some clear coat to this. Again, this is a bit of cheating, but it works. Now let's see what's happening with the other gumball. And let's assign the same material to it. If we don't want that to be like blue because it's been really randomly assigned, what we can do is to duplicate this material right here. And let's say we want this to be yellow. What we can do is to simply delete all the other colors here, and it's yellow. So that is basically it. Everything is done. Let's just Shift A, select our camera, Control Alt 0 to snap into our view. Let's position it. And we are good to render. So F12. I hope you guys liked it and learned something. If you did, please consider subscribing and liking this video, and I'll see you in the next one.